This is some top tips for the Sage Barista Touch coffee machine. Having been using the coffee machine for a few months, hopefully I'll be able to save you a little bit of time getting it to produce what I think is probably a pretty good quality coffee. The bean hopper holds about 250 grams of coffee. If this is a brand new machine to you, then I recommend getting some just off the shelf generic coffee beans like Lavazza. It produces reasonable coffee, but it means that it won't be hugely expensive if you make a mess of it while you're just getting to grips with the machine. Once you've done that, then obviously go for the more expensive and more gourmet coffee beans after that. The other thing is to keep the shower screen just in there nice and clean, so you don't get old oils from old coffee ruining the flavour. So there's kind of 5 variables that you can change with this machine when it comes to extracting espresso. There's the dose, which is how much coffee goes into the basket there. There's the grind, which is how fine the coffee bean gets ground up into the basket. There's the tamp, which is how heavy you push down the coffee into the basket. The extraction time, which is how long it takes for your coffee to get into your cup. And then the yield, which is how much coffee you produce from whatever you've put into the basket. That sounds like a lot of variables, but actually the dose is kind of set by the size of the basket. So if you're using the double basket, I'd use 18 grams. If you're using the single basket, then I would use 10 grams because it holds slightly more than half. The grind you will have to play with. That's a bit of trial and error for any given coffee. The tamping, you want to try and get it consistent so it's the same every time. So using the same pressure each time. The brew time wants to be around about 30 seconds, but don't get too hung up on it. If you're getting exactly the right amount in the basket and the right amount of coffee coming out, if it's between 25 and 35 seconds, it can vary for the coffee. That's not the sort of the be all and end all. If it's all coming out in sort of 5 or 10 seconds, then you've got a problem. And then there's the yield, which is how much coffee you produce from your 18 grams. Now for espresso, you're looking at a ratio around about 2 to 1, so about 36 grams. Ristretto, which is stronger, you're looking about 1 to 1, so you're looking to get only about 18 grams out for a bolder flavour. For a lungo, you're looking to get more. So there's no sort of right or wrong, you can vary it to your taste. But if you start off with a 2 to 1 ratio and then tweak it from there. So the first variable we're going to look at is the dose. Now this is straightforward because for any given basket with any given coffee, you're looking to do exactly the same dose each time. Now the way the machine does that is with a timer, which is fine enough, but ideally you want it to be slightly more accurate than that. So it's worth getting a cheap set of coffee scales. These ones are under 20 quid on Amazon. If you just search for digital coffee scales, then you don't have to spend a fortune, but you can get some really quite reliable scales. Now I've weighed the portafilter with the basket in, just because ideally you want to zero it and then put your coffee in, but if you forget to zero it, if you already know the weight of the thing without the coffee, then you can work out exactly how much coffee you've got in as well. So I've weighed it and I've made a little note of that in a notebook. The other thing that I do is I make a note of exactly how much coffee I put in, what grind size I use, how long I brew it for any given coffee. If it's a coffee that I like, then I write those details down in my little notebook so I can, when I come to use that coffee again, I've got a good starter for when I'm getting the machine set up. So with the double shot basket, you're looking for about 18 grams. Now it could be down to 16, it could be up to 20, but 18 is a good starter for 10, so that's where I would go. With the single shot basket, if you use that, then I would halve it, but usually add about 1 gram because it holds slightly more than half of the double shot basket. I would start using the double basket because it is a lot easier to get consistent results. Halfway through, I always stop, just knock down the beans a little bit, the ground beans, and then carry on, just so that the ground coffee sits more evenly in the basket and you don't get it pouring over the top quite so much. So once it's ground, weigh it again, and it should be about 18 grams. Well, that never happens, exactly 18, that is that's a miracle. Normally you have to add a little bit or take a little bit off, but that's perfect. So we'll brew that and see how we get on with that. That's witchcraft. It's only because I'm videoing it. I'm going to tamp it down now. I usually just use my finger just to spread it left, right, forward and backwards. I'm not pushing it down with my finger. I'm just spreading it around so that I can tamp it nice and evenly into the basket. evenness and consistency is what we're looking for. And then we just push it down nice and firm, but not overly aggressive. You're not trying to ram it home. And we're looking for a nice smooth surface on the top, about to the top of the tamper. The tool that they give you, the razor tool, is a very good guide for how deep into the basket that coffee should go. You should just be touching the surface of the coffee with that tool, as you can see there. If it's too low, then you get too much water jiggling around in the top, and you'll get an uneven extraction. If it's too high in the basket, then it doesn't give it enough room to expand properly. So again, you won't get a great extraction there. So if you've got 18 grams and it's too much coffee, then you want a finer grind. If you've got your 18 grams and it's really low down, then you want a more coarse grind, and that'll sort of make it fill up more room in the basket. And then you're looking to just make that consistent every time. So we've chosen our dose for the appropriate basket. We're not going to change that. We've adjusted the grind and got the tamp consistent so it's at the right level in the basket. Now we're going to look at the extraction time, how long it takes to brew, and the yield, which is how much we actually get. Now, you're not going to do this every single time you make a coffee unless you're a purist, but if you set it up like this, then it should be fairly consistent each time you use it. So we hit brew, then we're looking for the coffee should start dropping out of the portafilter after sort of 7 seconds plus. If it's coming out before that, if it's coming out as soon as you hit brew, then you've probably got your grind size a little bit too coarse, so you probably want to bring it down a notch or two. Likewise, if it's barely flowing out of the machine at all, it's just coming out in drips, like drip, 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 then you're too fine and you want to make it slightly more coarse. It should be coming out in a very fine, even stream. It should be coming out of both sides of the nozzle at the same time. If it's only coming out of one side, that's probably because you've not got it sat evenly in the basket. But that's about 36.6 grams, so almost exactly a 2-to-1 ratio. And you can see that there's a lovely thick crema on that coffee, and that looks like it's going to be a really good shot. Be a good base for your cappuccino or for your latte, etc. That's 27 seconds. The final thing we can do just to troubleshoot if we're having any issues is we can just have a look at the puck afterwards. Now, it should come out nice and dry like this. If it's all swampy and full of water, that's perhaps an indication that the grind size is too fine. So maybe just set it a notch coarser or so. It should be able to, when you tap it out, it should come out nicely in one piece, just like that, leaving the basket to be cleaned for the next one. If we have a look at the puck, it should hold its shape nicely together like that. If it's all falling apart and it's not holding its shape, then that's perhaps because the grind size is too coarse. Now, with this machine, sometimes if you haven't got the dose quite right, sometimes the coffee puck can end up stuck to the inside of the shower screen. If you take the portafilter off and the coffee's not in it and it's stuck just in there, stuck to the shower screen, that's sometimes because there's not enough coffee. So try adding 0.5 gram to 1 gram to your dose, and then add 1 gram to 2 grams to your yield to give you the same sort of ratio of coffee output, and see if that helps. Alternatively, just try making it a notch coarser on the grind setting. Hopefully that's helpful. If you're still having issues, then leave me a comment and I'll see if I can come up with any wizardry to fix it.